Fickle winds and difficult currents make the Rolex Middle Sea Race one of the toughest races in the world today. To win this race, you need to have a very good crew, done your homework, and have a little bit of luck on your side.
People take this race on for many, many reasons. Line honours is what we're after, and hopefully the weather gods will help us.
For us, this is continuing a family love affair for what is an irresistible race.
For us, it's a journey of discovery, a new hemisphere, a new challenge, a chance to test ourselves against the best. But whatever happens, this is going to be a great 2017 Rolex Middle Sea Race.
Valletta, Malta, and 104 boats have gathered to take part in the 38th edition of the Mediterranean's longest offshore race.
The Rolex Middle Sea Race has attracted entries from all over the world: New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Chile, 29 countries in all. I think it's unprecedented in a race of this kind.
But amongst the international gathering of crews, there's an uneasy feeling of apprehension down on the dock. Anxious team briefings ensue as word of looming Force 8 gales spreads throughout the fleet.
So the weather's a big talking point for the race right now. We've got a Mistral coming in sometime on day 2, and we're expecting between 25 and 30 knots of wind, but it could easily be more than 30. It's going to be a wet and wild ride.
Everybody's talking about the weather. We're talking about gale force conditions coming in from the northwest. This red marking here, that's potentially boat breaking conditions. For the big fast boats, the 10-year-old race record, that could go.
We're now up at the start line from the saluting battery overlooking Grand Harbour. The view from here is fantastic. We'll be having 6 starts at 10-minute intervals. It's a fantastic spectacle, and we just wait for the gun.
As the small boats get underway, it is the Russian yacht Bogatyr who get the best start. And then the medium-sized boats, including Elusive 2, sailed by the PODESTA family.
We're one of 6 Maltese boats in the race this year, so we're going to be flying Malta's flag high. And we're aiming for a class win, and we'll be very happy with that.
And from the other side of the world, Crusader, skippered by Brett Elliott.
Well, we've come from New Zealand. It's just an iconic race that we really want to be a part of. To come to a place with such history is really exciting for us.
And then the last to start, the Maxis, the biggest yachts in the fleet. And aiming to set a new race record, Rambler 88, helmed by 4-time America's Cup winner, Brad Butterworth.
The start line is difficult because it's quite congested, so we want to get out of the start line without fouling somebody or getting hooked up with somebody, and then off we go.
Also in the hunt to be first home, Australian yacht CQS, helmed by Finnish veteran skipper Ludde Ingvall, fulfilling a lifetime ambition to compete in this race and getting his first taste of the Grand Harbour.
As soon as we get going, we realize we have a gap to tack on port and tack back onto starboard, and coming out the harbour pretty well. So the start for us is a better outcome than we had hoped for, but the harbour is just magnificent, and as you're squeezing through the harbour walls and heading out to sea, you realize that you're in the middle of history.
The 606 nautical mile course takes the fleet out across the Maltese Channel, up the east coast of Sicily to the volcanic island of Stromboli, from here to Favignana, then south round Pantelleria and Lampedusa, before turning back to Malta and the finish line off Valletta. But first, the yachts must navigate one of the most notorious hotspots on the course, the Strait of Messina, a narrow stretch of water famous for whirlpools and treacherous currents. The big boats pass through in the night, but by dawn, the medium-sized boats find themselves navigating the unpredictable waters.
The Sicilian coast and the Strait of Messina are the hardest parts of the race. We're beating up the straits with a lot of wind, hugging the Italian coast, literally tacking meters away from the shore, dodging current and catching eddies. We got a good breeze at this point, nothing extreme, but more than enough to get our boat up to speed.
Straits of Messina are another experience. You literally see white water with no wind at all. The currents flow in through the straits or out. There are tables which the straits provide, but they don't always work. It's quite nasty.
In ancient times, the phenomenon of the Messina whirlpools was blamed on mythological sea monsters. But today, science is able to better explain what is really going on. Professor Alan Daydon of the University of Malta has been diving in these waters for the past 20 years and now has a clear understanding of the processes taking place beneath the surface.
Basically, at the Strait of Messina, what you have is you have the Atlantic water coming in from further afield. And on the other side of the Strait of Messina, you have water coming from the Eastern Basin. So you have like two systems moving in opposite directions, side by side. You also have tides associated with a narrow and deep channel. The sea plays tricks on mariners, and they are at the complete mercy of the sea conditions.
So how do yachtsmen successfully navigate these tricky waters? The answer could be in a new project being pioneered by the university's leading physical oceanography scientist, Professor Aldo Drago.
One of our major projects in the last 4 years is the Calypso HF radar project. This consists of an installation of 2 radar stations on the Malta side and 2 other radar stations on the Sicily side, with the scope of observing and monitoring the sea surface currents in real time. The ocean circulation is very complex, and knowing ahead and on the spot which currents are being experienced enables yachtsmen to optimize their trips and go faster through the area. The coverage of the HF radar is currently on the stretch of sea between Malta and Sicily. But of course, the ambition is to expand the system up to Messina Strait.
Up ahead, the volcanic island of Stromboli, the race's most iconic landmark, awaits the leaders. Rambler 88 are the first to arrive, but as they do so, the wind dies, and their chances of breaking the race record ebb away.
We get out of Messina and we're still in good breeze here, and then we stop at Stromboli and there it is beside us. We're here for the day, for sure. We realise the record's gone.
Behind, the chasing Supermaxes, Leopard and CQS also find themselves becalmed as an eerie stillness descends upon Stromboli.
So coming up towards Stromboli, we are stuck in light air, and it's very frustrating. And we can see boats behind us getting closer and closer, and suddenly we realize that we have 40, 50 footers and they're 3 miles behind.
The pursuing pack includes the 45-foot Maltese yacht Elusive 2, co-helmed by CHRISTOPH PODESTA.
The wind dies and the sea turns into a pond. It's very frustrating, but at least it's a good opportunity for us to prepare for the harsh weather that we know is going to hit us. We know the wind is coming. We can see the clouds developing on the horizon, yet we have no wind and we're just a sitting duck.
Overnight, as expected, the storm front hits the Sicilian coast, and by morning the lead boats have reached Favignana as the sun rises on some of the most dramatic sailing conditions seen in the Rolex Middle Sea Race for almost 10 years. For Ludde Ingvall on CQS and Brad Butterworth on board race leader Rambler, it develops into a memorable and dramatic leg of the race.
By the time we're at Trapani, we're into 25 to 30 knots and we're off, punching through the waves. A lot of water over the deck and everybody clipped on.
We're sitting with the crew on the transom and hanging on as good as we can. We have some serious G-forces when she jumps over the waves, the bow berries, and we have huge amount of water coming across the deck.
The breeze gets up to around 40. All the foam's getting blown off the top of the waves and the sea state growing as the hours go by. In the end, it was as big as I've seen it in the Med.
You know that you're on the edge. That's exhilarating.
Everybody's excited to sail a boat in this much wind, and Everybody's aware that there's a lot of danger around, and a few guys have got bruises and torn ligaments, and some of them have got black eyes.
We're already starting to see some injuries. We are falling off waves, really starting to worry about the boat.
We sailed the boat with an accelerator pushed hard to the floor all the way through.
While the lead boats head south, the remainder of the fleet take the full front of the storm on the nose as they continue west along the coast. The forecasts promise boat-breaking conditions, and that's exactly what they get.
Everybody on deck!
As the gale batters the fleet, crews scramble to reef mainsails and put up storm jibs.
We're sailing on the north coast of Sicily. The sea state is massive here. Waves are pounding us, wave after wave. We're all wet, everyone's cold. Very tough place to be.
On board Elusive 2, CHRISTOPH PODESTA battles to weather the storm, in the end erring on the side of caution and going into survival mode.
The winds actually come up to about 35 knots. The sea state is very big. I think we have about 7-meter waves at the moment. We've decided to put our main down, and we're sailing with our heavy weather jib and our trysail.
For the current overall race leader, Jamie Sammett's Unica, survival is also the name of the game. He decides that discretion is the better part of valor and retires from the race with his boat still in one piece.
As the squall hits us, a good 50 knotter, the boat is shaking. When you are in that breeze, you expect something to break, and that's when we decided to call it a day.
Back at race headquarters in the Royal Malta Yacht Club, Principal Race Officer Peter Demek is counting the cost of the storm. The list of retirements is ever growing, and many boats have suffered serious damage.
The forecast has come in as predicted. Winds of between 30, 40 knots, 5 to 6 meter waves. Most of them are managing to survive, but we're already getting a number of boats dead retiring. A number of sails have ripped, boat lost its mast, another boat is having difficulty with its rudder, but those that are pushing and going on, it's a fight for survival.
Amongst those who've battled on through the storm is one of the smallest yachts in the fleet, 35-foot Crusader from New Zealand, skippered by Brett Elliott.
We're all quite tired after the big beat and then having to push it all night, so we're really on the edge for us now. It's a real balance. We're trying to push really hard, but obviously we know that we want to finish the race in one piece, so we have to try and find that balance.
Also pressing on at speed is the brand new French yacht Teasing Machine, led by Volvo Ocean Race helmsman Laurent Page.
We're fighting stronger and stronger seas. You have to keep nurturing the boat and make sure you don't break anything. A big mistake we can do is to try to slow it down, and then you start pinching in the waves, and that's even worse. So a good option is to keep going fast.
With one eye on the clock, Teasing Machine press on with relentless drive, putting them in the running for the overall race title on handicap alongside Music from South Africa and Elusive 2. Maya Podesta and her two brothers Aaron and Christoph are sailing the family boat owned by their late father, who passed away in 2015. Arthur Podesta was perhaps the race's most famous advocate. He was part of the crew that won the inaugural race back in 1968, and following that, remarkably took part in every edition up until his death, clocking up 35 Middle Sea races, and often with his children sailing as part of the crew. This year, they've returned to race Elusive 2 once again and continue the Podesta love affair with the Middle Sea Race.
My two brothers and I were discussing the final preparations for the race. It's great to be all back together again. We've been planning the race a little while, and we're finally here and doing it. My dad's history with the race sort of led us into doing the race with him, and he wouldn't do the race without us. And now we wouldn't do the race without each other. So it means a lot to us. We wouldn't miss it for the world.
And it's this passion that unites all three of them into a cohesive team, each with their own role on board.
We all know our weaknesses, our strengths. I tend to keep them calm when things get heated up. But we all have specific roles on board. CHRISTOPH's the co-skipper. He's the youngest, but he's got the most experience.
Aaron is a very cautious person. Everything he does, he makes sure is 100% and is reliable. He's a fantastic helmsman, and he's probably the only one I trust on deck while I go to sleep. Maya's probably the most intense sailor of us all, but now she seems to have settled with the navigation side. She's very in tune with weather systems. We've got such a deep understanding, it's almost telepathic.
There is a three-way bond between us. There's no doubt about that. It used to be a four-way bond, but now the three of us are filling in the gaps that my dad has left, in a way.
Of course, we do it for our father as well, but it's not the main reason. We love the race. We're passionate about it. For me, Aaron and Maya are my rocks, and as long as I'm sailing with them, I know that we can get through anything.
Through the night, race leaders Rambler 88 continue to maintain their advantage over Leopard, Hugo Boss and CQS, having sailed a fantastic downwind leg that takes them to the finish back in Valletta. They cross the line in a time of 2 days, 9 hours and 48 minutes. No race record, but for owner George David, the satisfaction of scoring his third consecutive Middle Sea Line Honours victory in a race that had it all.
That's the way sailing distance races in the Mediterranean can often be. We know the Mediterranean is either light or heavy. It's rarely in between. And this time we had some of both. We raced this boat for a corrected time win, and we have no idea what's going to happen. There's still boats that are out there. You can never tell until the last boat gets in.
And crossing the line in fourth place, CQS, capping a great first experience of this classic race for skipper Ludde Ingvall.
It's the most scenic race I've ever done in my life, but the main thing is, we crossed off this event on our bucket list. It was one of the things I really wanted to do, and now I've ticked that.
As dawn breaks once again, the medium and small size boats are heading to Lampedusa in the penultimate stage of the race. Having weathered the storm, they're now reaping the rewards with some fantastic downwind sailing conditions. The grimaces have been replaced with grins. With more than half of the fleet now retired, the chances of winning the overall race title have dramatically improved for many of the faster yachts left sailing, like Elusive 2.
Everything is falling into place. We're happy. We haven't broached in a couple of hours now, and everything seems to be going really, really well. All of a sudden, there's this smaller boat catching up on us, and we realize it's Bogatyr, which has a much lower handicap than us. So that means that we're actually owing them quite a lot of time. In theory, we should be a lot faster than them, but we're not.
As the race enters its final stage, it reaches a dramatic climax. With the small Russian yacht Bogatyr rapidly closing from behind, there's a frenetic charge for the line, and the lead passes first to Teasing Machine, then to Music, and then finally to Bogatyr as they overtake Elusive on the last leg and cross the line to take the overall winner's title by just 6.5 minutes on corrected time. An outstanding and historic double for owner Igor Ritov and crew as they become the smallest boat to win the race for 15 years and the first Russian yacht ever to do so. Behind, Maya, Aaron and Christoph PODESTA cross the line on Elusive 2. Despite suffering gear failure, they push hard to the very end. But on the dock, the plaudits go to Bogatyr, who seem surprised themselves by the result.
Но нет, мы, если честно, мы не думали. В своем классе мы еще думали, что у нас шансы есть, а среди лодок, таких как Rambler, ну, мы думали, что они гораздо быстрее финишируют.
No prizes this time for Elusive 2, but instead a family celebration for a magnificent performance that would have made their father proud.
Overall, it was a tough race. It demanded a lot out of us, but we got the boat around the course, and that's what we wanted to do.
The 2017 edition of the Rolex Middle Sea Race will go down as one of the most challenging in recent history. Of the 104 boats that started the race, only 35 finish. For those that have survived the challenge and completed the race, a mixed bag of emotions. Relief, joy and euphoria. Just getting home in one piece is cause for celebration. And for Crusader, the lightweight 35-foot racing yacht, a very respectable 19th place. They took everything that the race threw at them and will return to New Zealand with an experience that will live long in the memory.
The Middle Sea, I guess, delivered what we'd sort of been promised. We certainly got the breeze. It's a brutal little boat for the people on it. It goes really well, and we struggle after a while.
The weather has played its part, and the boats have had to battle against it and persevere. The ones that have gone through to the end and finished, we salute them, and I'm sure they're proud to have concluded in such a great feat of seamanship to get here at the end of the day.
Winner of a Rolex Middle Sea trophy goes to Bogatyr.
Well-deserved applause for a landmark moment in the race's history, as Igor Ritov and the crew of Bogatyr become the first ever Russian winners of the coveted Rolex Middle Sea Race trophy. Next time on the Spirit of Yachting, we'll be in Australia for another offshore classic, the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race.